This winter, long after the tourists have left St. Petersburg, a select few will have the opportunity to explore the Hermitage in depth. This was the home of the Romanovs and now one of the world's greatest museums. You must not miss the glories of the Hermitage. I know of no better way to explore and learn about this grand museum than through the 8-day Viking program, Glories of the Hermitage. With links to resources no one else has, such as Director of the Hermitage Foundation and author Geraldine Norman, these privileged access tours were created to provide unique insight into the world's greatest museum. Enjoying the Hermitage on Mondays, when it's normally closed, is a real treat. Stroll leisurely amid priceless diplomatic gifts from Asia and from the Middle East, and then visit the impressive gold and diamond rooms of the Treasury galleries. What I most enjoy is seeing tucked-away corners of the Hermitage most people never experience. Like the window where in 1902 Alexandra scratched the phrase, "Nicky is looking at the hussars."
You can just see it engraved in the window, no doubt with a diamond. The interesting thing is it's in English, because Nicholas and Alexandra regularly spoke English together.
There are also grand spaces that simply cannot be missed.
Here is Catherine the Great's theatre, and Catherine used to sit 3 up on the corner.
And of course there's gallery upon gallery of the world's greatest masters. Renoir, Cézanne, Rembrandt, Kees van Dongen, who's one of my favourites, and many more. Glories of the Hermitage also offers an exclusive visit to the museum's ultra-secured vaults. In these 35,000-metre off-site storage facilities, you're escorted through a remarkable, unexhibited collection of artistic and historic artefacts, from Romanov family furniture to paintings by the great masters to stunning imperial carriages, all protected by state-of-the-art security systems. Equally compelling are the sights beyond the museum, and interesting outings including a visit to spectacular Catherine's Palace, home of the famed Amber Room. An unusual experience is afternoon tea in a communal apartment hosted by its residents. It's fun and it's real, and it's a dramatic contrast to the Hermitage and the city's opulent palaces and cathedrals. Here you have the opportunity to learn how most Russians lived during the Soviet era and how many continue to live today. You'll love the evenings as you dine in some of St. Petersburg's finest settings, followed by the symphony, opera, or the ballet at the world-renowned Mariinsky Theatre. Your home while in St. Petersburg is the 5-star Grand Hotel Europe, a cultural and culinary landmark for over 130 years. Join us as we explore the beauty of St. Petersburg in winter and the glories of the Hermitage with Viking. No one can share Russia with you like we can.
Good evening. I'm Natalia Sokolova, and I'm one of the most passionate admirers of St. Petersburg main museum named Hermitage. I hold PhD in linguistics, and I teach at St. Petersburg State University. And I'm very lucky, being a guide for 15 years, the Viking company offered me a wonderful opportunity to launch with them fantastic programs, privileged access tours, Glories of the Hermitage, Hermitage Behind Closed Doors, an evening of art and music. And today, I want to share my love with you to this outstanding museum, the pride of Russia and St. Petersburg. But let me start my story today with a very interesting episode that took place in my childhood. It took place about 20 years ago. I was about 10 of age when I started my 5th grade. It was very special. Instead of regular classes, we used to go to the Hermitage 5 days a week, besides Mondays when the Hermitage is closed for the visitors, and Sundays. They gave us 1 day off. Regularly, each day, we would have 2 excursions, or shall I use the word lectures on art history. Under a very special agreement between my school, my teachers, and the Hermitage administration, we even had lunch with them. It was overwhelming. We were eating with world-known scientists, restorers, guides, and they were kind to this crowd of 25 10-year-old kids. That inspired me. And those 4 weeks in the Hermitage, I would say, changed my life forever. I kept coming to the Hermitage over and over again, trying not to miss a single new exhibition. At that moment of time, early 1990s, I think we were among the first visitors to the recently opened exhibition devoted to Peter the Great and his private quarters that they had just discovered in the basement of the Theatre Museum. That was not easy. Long hours, 3 hours a day we spent commuting back and forth to the Hermitage. It was challenging, but we barely noticed that. We were so overwhelmed, so excited about the tours, about the people, about the atmosphere that the Hermitage was so eagerly sharing with us. Children of 10. And I guess I shall say biggest thank you ever to my school teachers, to the principal of that school that specialized in humanities, art history, literature, languages. I don't know whether it is possible to do now, but for back that period, it was very special and it definitely defined my life. This opportunity to immerse myself into the world of art gave me a chance to fall in love with the best museum of this city, which I have loved forever. It wasn't my first time in the Hermitage. Of course, my parents had taken me to the Hermitage, and in our family living room had always been books about the Hermitage from the 60s, 70s, 80s that inspired me, that I kept reading. And I think one of them about the Hermitage during the Second World War changed my life. I realized that there are people who sacrifice their life in order to save the museum collections. And I still keep those books, and preparing for this lecture, I even found them in our family library in our country house, looked through them again and remembered my childhood. This blue one is particularly dear to me. Years passed, and after such an immersion, I kept reading about the Hermitage more and more. Several years later, I became a student of linguistics at St. Petersburg State University, where I'm teaching now. But ever since 90s, my route to the university went across the Palace Square, across the Palace Bridge. You just saw it on the screen. And it happened so that I got a unique opportunity to visit Hermitage as often as possible. Hermitage is a wonderful museum, very friendly with students from all over the world, no admission fee at all. And I remember I visited fantastic exhibitions of French art of the 20th century, Pierre Bonnard, Maurice Denis. I love those. There was an exhibition about European engravings. I remember there was an exhibition about Carl Fabergé that had recently opened. We visited with my girlfriends very many times, looking at the jewelry. And after my second year at the university, I became a guide in St. Petersburg and started my work. Traditionally, coming to the museum, people have only 2 hours. And I felt very sorry because 2 hours is not enough to introduce every person to the treasures of the Hermitage. Sometimes we had to rush from one exhibit to another, and I felt very guilty. In 2005, I started working with Viking cruises. It was a great change. Well, this is me on one of the Viking vessels, sailing along the waterways of the Tsars as a tour escort, when guests have a unique opportunity to see Russia in the most comfortable and relaxing way. In my background, you can see Kiji Island. We called it that port for a couple hours, had a walking tour, amazing time. That's a UNESCO site. And that same year, I had a pleasure and I was absolutely delighted to meet Karina Hagen, who is a very inspirational, devoted person. I really enjoyed working with her ever since. And I was very excited when Viking Company launched their special privilege program with the Hermitage Museum and invited me to participate. With those extended programs, we got a unique opportunity. We spent in the Hermitage not just 2 or 3 hours as regular visitors did. We would get a whole week. Special openings, early openings, when there is no crowd, there are no people. We got to see eventually the hidden treasures. I got a chance to share my knowledge, to show the parts of the Hermitage that we regularly did not have time for. That was very special to me and to our guests. Because the Hermitage is a unique museum which occupies former royal palace with glorious winter palace located on the palace square. Look at these green roofs. All the green roofs going along the embankment belong to the Hermitage. It's enormous. For 150 years, the main museum complex was the main imperial residence. It was declared a museum only after the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917. The green building with green roof was designed by the Italian architect. His name was Francesco Bartolomeo Rastrelli. And this winter palace is an elegant and living monument to Baroque style of the 18th century. The southern facade of the palace, overlooking the city's main square, it's in the upper left-hand corner, is the main city attraction, I guess. It is embellished with by a 2-tier colonnade that form a complex rhythm of verticals with numerous statues and vases on the roof of the building. And probably that is one of the most famous pictures of St. Petersburg ever found. In the center, there is the grand entrance to the beautiful courtyard. And the other pictures on this slide are the rest of the buildings of the main museum. Small Hermitage, Old Hermitage or Big Hermitage, Hermitage Theatre, and the New Hermitage. So let's look at the upper left-hand side corner and the grand entrance, which is accentuated with vertical elements and paired columns. It can be an absolutely elegant walk to the museum main entrance inside. I remember the opening of the inner courtyard. Elegant, beautiful, lots of flowers. It happened in 2003. Look at this beauty. And most of the guests to the Hermitage enter through this arch. They get to see the flowers in the summer. In the winter, it looks absolutely amazing. Everything is covered with snow. I love that picture. There is another entrance. Another entrance to the building is from the north, from the embankment. The northern facade impresses the visitors by the endless colonnade along the river Neva. This abundance of molded elements on the facade create a rich and elegant play of light and shade. Well, the main building, as we know with you, consists of 5 buildings. The Winter Palace, the Small Hermitage, the Old Hermitage, and the New Hermitage. But visiting the museum, I always try to choose the main entrance and bring our guests to the main staircase, which is probably one of the most elegant interiors of the place. It impresses everyone. This is the main and the most important entrance to the former royal residence. Opulence of its decor takes your breath away, regardless whether it is your first or 21st time. I always try to walk up this staircase, and I always try to take a minute to enjoy the exquisite decor of the interior restored by architect Stasov, retaining the concept of Rastreli after the Great Fire of 1837. There's a beautiful ceiling painting, enormous mirrors that you can see. They are located opposite the windows, gleaming gold elements, broad flights of the marble steps. They visually enlarge the interior. It was also known as the ambassador staircase, as they used to present their credentials on these steps arriving to St. Petersburg, to the capital of the Russian Empire until the Bolsheviks. Another name would be the Jordan staircase. This name brings us back to the royal family tradition. When at Epiphany, the members of the imperial family descended these steps to the Neva River in order to bless the waters of the Neva River, as if the Jordan. I shall mention that during the First World War, the royal family arranged in the Winter Palace a hospital, which worked inside the palace for several years. And this is the picture of the Nikolaevsky Hall, the largest interior of our palace. And you can see beds, endless rows of beds. The hospital worked inside. And I found this picture for you, especially to understand how close the royal family and the building was to the people. At that moment of time, the royal family resided permanently in Tsarskoye Selo. Let me now take you through some of my favorite Hermitage rooms as we see them on Viking privilege access tours. Shall we continue along the main suite? Along the walls of this room, you can see portraits of Russian field marshals, commanders-in-chief. I recognize Kutuzov, the far end. This is the person whose name would be familiar to you after War and Peace by Tolstoy. Ushakov. The designers used a lot of martial symbols around this room. Griselle paintings that incorporate military symbols, laurel wreaths, portraits of military, an elaborate work of chandeliers depicting martial symbols. Everything was supposed to glorify the might of the Russian army. Next, I want to take you to the most important room on our way, I guess. It's the Hall of Peter the Great, or the Small Throne Hall. It was created in 1830s by Auguste Montferrand and restored after the Great Fire of 1837 by Vasily Stasov. Do not be misled. Peter I never saw this room. He died basically 100 years ago, prior to its creation, but the room is dedicated to the memory of Peter. One can see interesting features of the room. Right above the painting portraying Peter with goddess of wisdom Minerva, now we can see the monogram of Peter. May I pay your attention? 2 letters P. Petrus Primus, Peter the First, and A in the center. Pyotr Alexeyevich, Peter, the son of Alexei. This is the official monogram of Peter, which became a design element, very elegantly. Also, we can see crown of Russia, the double-headed eagles that come all over the room. And I believe it's the best glorification for the outstanding deeds of Peter the Great. The person who founded St. Petersburg, it's thanks to him that the city actually exists, and the Hermitage as well. This old picture shows us the look of the 19th century. All the generations of the Romanovs tried to keep it as a memory, as a tribute to the glorious Tsar of early 18th century. Now I think we shall continue to the neighboring hall, which is called the Armorial Hall, designed to host grand receptions. Look at the size, look at the proportions. It takes your breath away when you enter the room. Small armorial shields with coat of arms of Russian provinces decorating the chandeliers gave the name to this hall. Chandeliers are amazing. Nowadays, this hall is very often used for temporary exhibitions and concerts, which we all try to attend. When they put on the light in the museum, it becomes magical. Our neighboring room is one of the most phenomenal interiors, in my view, of the Winter Palace. That would be the Gallery of 1812. It was designed to commemorate victory over Napoleonic France. The architect of the room, Carlo Rossi, decorated the walls with 332 paintings portraying generals, commanders-in-chief who fought in the War of 1812 and the foreign campaign of Alexander I in 1813-1814, created by the English master George Doe and his assistants. One can also find their Russian allies that you can see on the screen. That would be King Frederick William III of Prussia and Emperor of France of Austria. There would be also 4 portraits flanking the doors to the most important room where I want to invite you. All the rooms are important, but when we talk about the royal residence, the main throne room is of great interest. In the Winter Palace, the main throne room is called Hall of St. George. The hall was created in early 1840s after the Grand Fire by architect Stasov, who used a lot of Carrara marble in its design. 2 tiers of windows that bring a lot of light into this rather long interior. Also, look at the floors, elaborate design, 16 varieties of wood. And most elaborate and intricate workmanship of the ceiling design. It's incredible, but in some parts, the design of the floor reflects the design of the ceiling. These walls of this glorious hall witnessed major historic events in the Russian history in the past of the imperial family. Look at this black and white photo. It shows the opening day of the first ever elected Russian parliament. Nicholas II is giving a speech in presence of his family members there in the upper left-hand corner. His ministers, who are standing in the upper right corner, and newly elected Russian parliament. Next to the emperor, you get to see royal regalia. You can see coat of arms of Russia, the double-headed eagle, which is embroidered with silver and gold thread on red velvet. And just think about it. That was the day that ended the period of absolute monarchy in Russia, when country became the parliamentary monarchy. When I think about it, I realize that real history took place here. It's amazing. And when you enter this hall, you realize that these walls remember members of parliament, Nicholas II, Alexandra, Anastasia. This is where history becomes reality. And whenever I come to this museum, regardless the purpose of my visit, I always try to step in. I guess it helps me to take the right decision. And it's not the only room in our museum which is connected with Russian history. Next room, which is closely connected with political history of this country, would be the Malachite Hall. It was designed by Alexander Belov in 1839 and served originally as the drawing room of Russian Empress Alexandra Fedorovna, the wife of Nicholas I. The exquisite malachite decorative design elements are made in the so-called Russian mosaic technique. The largest wall of the room is embellished with allegorical depiction of night, day, and poetry by outstanding master Antonio Viggi. But what fascinates me about this room is the role that it played in Russian political life in early 20th century. After the February Revolution, the provisional government of the country chose this particular room to turn it into their office. There were tables and they worked inside. But in October of 1917, they moved to a neighboring room, wide, small dining room. It was not safe anymore to remain in the Malachite room because it overlooked the embankment. So they moved to the neighboring room, which is rather small but absolutely elegant. Look at this, molded elements, beautiful furniture, elegant mantelpiece. The white dining room is the very place of Bolshevik revolution, because it was exactly here where the members of the Provisional Government of Russia were arrested on the night of the 26th of October 1917. There is a memorial plaque devoted to those events, and I always, entering this room, pay attention to the visitors, to the mantelpiece where the memorial plaque is standing, and we're reading it. It gives us the day and the time. In this very room, I realized that history in this palace became reality. So if you're interested in political history of Russia and the events that took place in this particular hall, in this palace, I would recommend you a movie. It's a film of 1927. So this is the memorial plaque, and the film of 1927 called October by the eminent Russian film director Eisenstein and Alexandrov. In this early picture of 1920s, they portrayed the storm of the Winter Palace in October of 1917. Many scenes of this film were produced in the Winter Palace and in these particular rooms. History becomes reality here. One of my personal favorites, moving on, would be the Pavilion Hall. You can't come to the Hermitage without enjoying this absolute beauty. The Pavilion Hall is located in the small Hermitage. By the way, this is the first building to be called Hermitage, which means hermit's dwelling. Catherine the Great believed that it was her private dwelling where she kept her art collection, and she loved spending time here by herself or with her closest friends, few friends. In her diary, she used to write, "It's only the mice and the eye that can enjoy the beauty." The exquisite interior is filled with many wonders. Romantic gallery above the white colonnade, the peacock clock, fantastic floors that are decorated with mosaics are really breathtaking. Talented architect Andrei Steckenschneider combined here Renaissance, Gothic, and Oriental motifs. Well, and this is the peacock clock of 18th century, and can you believe, but it's in working condition. It's the largest mechanic clock of the 18th century that still goes off. It's breathtaking. And I guess it would be nice if we watch it with you. Well, I can tell you, when first time I saw the peacock going off, I was about, I don't remember, I was a teenager, I guess. I was speechless. I don't know how many times I've seen it going off, but I love them all. Also, talking about this interior, I should mention that this room overlooks a hanging garden, a typical feature of the time period. And together with peacock clock, which Potemkin, one of the favorites of Catherine the Great, commissioned for her, the hanging garden, one of those things that I could be enjoying forever. It's beautiful any time of the year, and I particularly love the winter look of this garden. It's one of my favorite pictures of the hanging garden taken by the Hermitage photographer. So I can continue endlessly with my rooms. Well, I wish they were mine, with the Hermitage rooms, because there are very many more beautiful interiors. Each of them is beautiful in its own right. But I think one more room I will mention as well. It would be the library of Nicholas II. There is part of the Hermitage where some of the private quarters of Nicholas II and his family survived. And this is one of them. After the revolution, the provisional government members worked inside. I cannot but mention my favorite museum building, the new Hermitage, which was specially constructed to house the collection of the growing museum. The then Russian Emperor Nicholas I invited German architect Leo von Klenze, who had already a big reputation for the museum buildings in Europe, to construct a new building for the museum. The task was rather challenging. They needed perfect museum building with a lot of wall space, good light, and of course elegant. It should be to the level of the then existing museums. So the project of Leo von Klenze was altered by Russian masters. These would be the architects Nikolai Yefimov, Vasily Stasov, who altered Klenze's project so that it would match the existing ensemble. And beautiful is the entrance to this place. You know, those statues, we call them Atlanti, cut out of great granite in the workshop of Alexander Cherembenev, accentuate the magnificent and impressive portico of the main entrance to the building. By the time of the building construction, the private collection of the Romanovs was kept in the older buildings that were never intended to be display halls. So the building from the very start was constructed in accordance to the growing collection. Special rooms, the skylight halls, were arranged, and those rooms with a lot of wall space. skylight, natural, indirect light, which is perfect for the paintings, appeared in St. Petersburg. And they became perfect home for large-size paintings. In general, this is the Italian collection. I shall also mention that with Viking privileged access groups, I came here with our program named Evening of Art and Music, when our seats were arranged in this very room that you saw last on your screen. And we listened to music. The acoustics there is fantastic. It was amazing. The atmosphere of the grandiose hall with the imperial collection, wonderful music played around us, produced incredible impression on all the participants. The rooms of the ground floor of this very building are decorated in the style of classical architecture and house the collection of antiquities and marble sculptures, with the biggest highlight of the collection, Venus of Taurida, 2nd century BC, the acquisition of Peter the Great's time. This fantastic and phenomenal building was opened in St. Petersburg on 5th of February, 1850, so it's over 160 years of age. And each building is beautiful, and I could continue, but I think it's time a little for me to speak a little bit about my favorite paintings. The previous host, Geraldine Norman, wonderfully spoke about the acquisitions of the museum. She spoke in details how Russian Tsars bought the artifacts, how the Hermitage acquired their collection. And today I would love to talk a little bit about my favorite pieces. Believe me, it was very challenging for me to choose few items for this presentation. So may I just mention that the collection is about 3 million exhibits. Each one is beautiful in its own right. Officially, the collection was started by Catherine the Great, but in a sense, Peter I started it because we have his Siberian collection of artifacts. We have a painting that he bought by Rembrandt traveling around Holland. So I want to show you some symbols of our collection. And this would be the calm of animal style that goes back to the 5th or 4th century BC, most probably produced by Greek masters. Another famous piece in our collection would be world-known stag. The jewelry collection of the Hermitage in general is remarkable. It contains not only archaeological findings of Greek origin Scythian gold, but there are also private belongings of Russian Tsarinas with Colombian emeralds, pendants with pearls, diamonds. Some of them go back to Peter the Great's times. For instance, I want to draw your attention to the lower right corner. You can see a present of Peter the Great to his beloved wife, Catherine I. Parrot. Next to it, you can see part of the horse harness, which was a very rich ambassadorial present. And those silver design elements, ladies and gentlemen, these are diamonds, several thousand diamonds. Beautiful pendants, manicure sets, flower branches. It is all kept in the treasure halls of the Hermitage. I think I could spend days there studying each item for hours. But we shall continue. The Italian collection of the Hermitage is one of the largest. Several 100,000 items. The most famous pieces are Leonardo's. We have 2 Madonnas by Leonardo da Vinci, and this is Benoit Madonna. That's a symbol. of the Hermitage. It got its name after the previous owners. There would be Titian pieces, and one of my favorite pieces by Titian would be a painting portraying Mary Magdalene. Beautiful is the frame here, where it comes from Barbarigo collection. Of course, we shall mention Raphael and Caravaggio, that are symbols of our collection. Raphael's piece representing his early period, and Caravaggio that has recently been perfectly restored by outstanding staff of the Hermitage Museum are one of the symbols. And of course, the statues of Canova and the most admirable statue of the Three Graces. The Hermitage is very proud of its Dutch collection, and if I were to choose the room to visit, only one, I would definitely come to Rembrandt's Hall. Rembrandt's collection in the Hermitage is one of the largest Rembrandt's collection outside the Netherlands. Rembrandt represents golden age of Dutch school, and in the Hermitage there are over 20 paintings representing different stages of his career. There are pieces from his early times, like the Old Warrior of 1630, to world-known masterpiece representing his mature period, Return of the Prodigal Son. That's the one. Absolutely amazing piece by Rembrandt. It was one of the that was the last piece that he actually created in his lifetime. He portrayed his first wife, Saskia, as the goddess of spring flora on this canvas. We can feel the painter's love and care to this woman, how he beautifully depicts every single fold of her sumptuous old-fashioned dress, puts flower wreath on her head as if a crown. This portrait reflects Rembrandt's mood in the happiest period of his life. Soon he moved to Amsterdam, but unfortunately, painter's wife died extremely young. She was only about 30 of age. She left Rembrandt only one living son, Titus, and died. In his lifetime, Rembrandt created a whole fantastic gallery of outstanding portraits. In the Hermitage, we have several of them dating back to 1650s. This is the portrait of an old man in red. At that period of time, the painter started portraying aged men and women, and perhaps this portrait is one of the best. We do not know the name of the person, but we know that he was definitely really important for the master, because we know about another portrait of the same character kept in the National Gallery in London with the title, An Old Man Sitting in an Armchair. The noble and wise facial features speak about the storms of life that the character had gone through, but he doesn't complain of his fate. We see wisdom and patience of his personality. Artist's skillful use of lighted color create perfect representation of the majesty of human soul. One of my personal favorites would be the portrait of Barthia Martens of 1640. The painting came to the Hermitage rather early. In the times of Catherine II in 1797, Barthia Marten was the wife of the cabinet maker who produced frames for Rembrandt. Looking at the portrait, we recognize a woman of rather ordinary background who enjoyed a very nice and kind personality. We see how she prepared herself for the moment. She put on her jewelry, some mink. She wanted to look nice. She holds her hands. She holds her smile. And we feel that she is intimidated by this situation. And this emotional side with play of light and shade help us open the inner world of this wonderful lady. And to conclude with Rembrandt's paintings, we move on to the world-known masterpiece of the Hermitage collection and Rembrandt, that would be The Return of Prodigal Son of 1668. The master painted this huge masterpiece just months before he died, without any commission. In this painting, the features of mature manner, color, light of the master acquired spiritual character. This is one of the most emotional canvases that had ever been created by the Dutch artist. The subject of the painting is very well known to you, I believe. Now, I want to take you to another building, which is located across the Palace Square, and that would be the General Staff Building. Designed by architect Carlo Rossi, it looks laconic, stylish, and rather strict, but absolutely elegant. To the right of the column, you can see the triumphal arch, which celebrates Russian victory in the War of 1812, glorifying the military triumph of the Russian army. In 1993, the eastern wing of this building, where formerly Minister of Foreign Affairs and Finances used to be, was given to the Hermitage, and I remember the opening day of the museum premises in 1999. It was very special. I remember going to this very building to see the world-famous exhibition of Pierre Bonnard and Maurice Denis, opened there in 1999. So you can see Maurice Denis, The Story of Psyche, and Pierre Bonnard, Mediterranean Triptych to the right. Those items had never been included into the permanent display of the museum due to their size. And having completely restored this building, preserving some historic interiors, arranging some glass roofs above the inner courtyards, the museum got a chance to have more exhibitional spaces. So in those courtyards, they have lecture halls, they arrange temporary exhibitions, and in the fourth floor of this building, they have their permanent exhibition of Impressionist, Post-Impressionist, the artists of Nabi Group. So you can see some rooms with those outstanding pieces which belong to Sergei Shukin and Morozov Brothers Memorial Gallery that occupy the fourth floor. About some of these pieces, my colleague Geraldine Norman very beautifully spoke about. Van Gogh's pieces are world famous. Monet's Montgeron Gardens are world famous. My favorite, Pissarro, and of course, Paul Cézanne, his dance and music that are symbols of this gallery of Shukin and Morozov. The last building on my favorites list today would be the youngest to join the museum. It was open to public only in the year 2003, when the city celebrated its 300th anniversary, its state-of-the-art construction. You're looking at the facade of one of the 5 buildings there. This enormous complex, which is located some 30-minute drive from the main museum buildings, gave a unique chance to all the visitors to visit lectures that are held in the lectorium, to visit some traditionally closed storage rooms. This is the plan of the 5 existing buildings. They have the biological control laboratory, customs department, lectorium, restoration laboratories, and some rooms where we are allowed. We go there rather often with Viking special tours, for instance, Hermitage Behind Closed Doors. We get a chance to visit some storage rooms. We get to see some furniture, historic furniture. You get to walk through this hall and you get to see the furniture that previously had belonged to some private quarters of the Russian Romanovs. Furniture that was specifically bought for the interiors. On your left-hand side in this picture, there is a pink set of furniture pieces. Once it had belonged to the pavilion hall. It was relocated here due to the preservation reasons. This state-of-the-art vault is a perfect facility for restoring and preserving items. There is humidity control, there is biological control laboratory, so it's perfect home for these items. Besides the furniture collection, there is my favorite department, the department of clothes and dresses, where one can find clergy outfits of the past. Look on your right, on the right-hand side of the picture. To the left-hand side, these are the dresses that belong to peasants. Peasants from different regions of Russia. Each region and province had its own fashion that defined the cut, the color, and so on. The dress which is in the foreground is a wedding dress. Beautiful, isn't it? Embroidery. Besides these dresses, there is an outstanding collection of the dresses that once had belonged to the royal family members. These would be special occasion dresses. This would be ceremonial dresses, wedding dresses, everyday dresses. I remember that several years ago, there was an exhibition arranged in the main museum complex devoted to the department of costumes and dresses of the Hermitage. I think I visited that place at least 20 times. I brought all my family, all my friends there. And when the exhibition was over, I felt so sad. I realized that it's not easy to display those artifacts. They require humidity control, temperature control. And I was thinking that the next time we get to see those costumes would be in like 20 years or 30 years. To my surprise and to my pleasure, a year later in the storage facility, there was arranged this exhibition on permanent display, where we get to see these outstanding dresses that got relocated. On this very picture, by the way, the showcase on the left, closest to us, with a female dress, once had belonged to last Russian Tsarina. Her name was Maria Alexandra, and she wore this dress a lot when she was expecting. So we have very interesting items in this collection, and I'm very delighted and very happy that these items were added to permanent display, and we get a chance with some private groups to get to see them in the storage facility. Although the storage of the Hermitage allows several hundred visitors a day, but with privileged access to our hidden treasures of the Hermitage are always available for tours of Vikings. And my very last favorite for today would be the coronation carriage from the Hermitage collection. This carriage was commissioned by Peter the Great in 1720 in France. Unfortunately, by the time it was delivered to Russia, the Tsar had died. But we do know for sure that it participated in 2 coronations of the Russian Tsarinas, of Russian Tsar and Tsarina. First time it was in use during the coronation was the coronation of Catherine the Great. And then it was used almost 100 years later during the coronation of Nicholas II, when his mother, Queen Widow Maria Feodorovna, was sitting in this very carriage, arriving to Moscow Kremlin, where officially all the coronation ceremonies of Russian Tsars take place. Besides this coronation carriage, the Hermitage storage center allows us to see other carriages. They have an outstanding collection of everyday carriages, special occasion carriages like wedding carriages, And what fascinates me most would be the sleighs, the open sleighs of the Russian imperial family. You know, ladies and gentlemen, how long Russian winters can be. And sleighs were very important. So right next to the big coronation carriage is the open sleigh that once had been created for Catherine the Great. Then it was used by her grandsons. Well, these carriages take me to the end, and I shall say that it was extremely difficult for me to choose the items that I would talk about today. And this brings me to your questions. So let me see now what questions we have here. Oh, there's a lot I shall be choosing. It's a question from Jean from St. Louis. As a child, what was your favorite exhibit? I think my favorite exhibit as a child was Peacock, the Peacock clock. It was overwhelming. As I mentioned earlier, I was speechless when I saw it going off. And you know, it's not only the peacock that moves. As you notice, all the animals, they move. The cage with the owl rotates, the owl blinks and turns its head, the rooster crows and the paws move. It was overwhelming. I was absolutely speechless when I saw it going off first time. And I never saw an indifferent face when the peacock goes off. Some visitors of our museum even start clapping. So next question. Were there any of the buildings destroyed in World War II? If so, where were they stored? I guess these are two questions. Were there any buildings destroyed? No. Luckily, not a single building was completely destroyed. They were badly damaged. You know, air raids of Leningrad during the siege sometimes lasted 24/7, and there were very many buildings completely destroyed in the city center. But Hermitage was never demolished, none of its buildings. It was seriously damaged in some parts of it, but luckily not a single interior was destroyed. So when you come, you see the authentic beauty. The second half of the question is, where were the items stored during the Second World War? Well, here we shall pay great tribute to the then director. His name was Mr. Orbeli, who ordered to prepare package boxes and 2 trains fully loaded with world-famous artifacts left St. Petersburg days before the siege started. The first train took to Yekaterinburg 500,000 items. The second one took 700,000. The items that remained in St. Petersburg were replaced from the halls downstairs in the basements, and some part of the staff escorted the trains to Yekaterinburg and kept working there. They even arranged exhibitions in Yekaterinburg. The staff that remained in St. Petersburg kept coming to their workplaces, trying to do whatever to preserve the items that remained in St. Petersburg. So these people inspired me a lot when I read about them in childhood. So next question. Congratulations for the invitation. Yes. So how many, Natalia? It's a question from James from Colchester. Hi, Natalia. How many years have you been working with Hermitage? Well, as I mentioned a bit earlier, in total, I've been working as a guide for 20 years. So it was my pleasure. And I always proudly say that the Hermitage is like second home for me, and I get to see it very often. and I feel at home, thanks to outstanding team of people who work there. And I guess I'm trying to share my love to the Hermitage today with you. And yes, Hannah from Austin writes, thank you for presentation. I very much enjoy the information discussed. Thank you very much. It's very kind of you. Michael from the Villages, are there any motor cars in the museum? If you're asking about the motor cars being exhibits, no. There are some engine carriages in the carriage collection. If you come, we get to show it to you. But motor cars, 1917, Bolshevik Revolution, no, as far as I know, no. But there are some engines that they would attach to the carriages. It's fascinating to see. And I guess our last question for today. Yes, the question about the destroy of the Second World War came from Williamsburg. Charlie Mitchell. Hello, Williamsburg. I have very good memories about this place. And the last question for tonight, ladies and gentlemen, comes from Nikolai from Baden-Baden. Which of the exhibition arranged by the Hermitage impressed you mostly that you have not mentioned in your presentation? That's a very good question. Thank you. As I mentioned earlier, I try to visit all the exhibitions that the Hermitage arranges, if time permits. And in 2017, there was a very interesting exhibition arranged inside the Hermitage Museum. That year was a 100th anniversary of Revolution. And there was an amazing exhibition which impressed me deeply, devoted to the exhibition. The storm of the Winter Palace, and I did recommend you the video earlier in my presentation, took place in October. And at that exhibition, the museum curators indicated with arrows the route of the revolutionary groups. It was amazing. They gave us a chance to live through those days and years. I think that was the exhibition that impressed me a lot. Of course, there was a wonderful exhibition of Calatrava, for instance, which impressed me greatly. It's a designer. There are very many exhibitions, Fabergé exhibition, and endless. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was our last question for today. And I guess we will be finishing. And yes, let's take one more question, which came from Karen from Guildford. Is the Viking tour Secrets of the Hermitage just visiting the new buildings 30 minutes outside of St. Petersburg, or does it also get to the main buildings? Well, I guess you're talking about the tour named Hermitage Behind Closed Doors. That's a whole day tour. When we start in the main museum complex, we get to see the Winter Palace, all the imperial rooms that I talked about. We get to see the Peacock Clock. We get to see small Hermitage, new Hermitage, old Hermitage. Then with a short break, we take a walk across the square to the General Staff building to see the collection of Impressionists and Post-Impressionists. And then we take a bus. Viking bus that takes us to the outskirts of St. Petersburg. It's about 30-minute break on the bus, which is really nice. It gives us a nice rest. and we get to see the new building. And before that, we feed our visitors. And it's not just a coffee shop. It's not just, a restaurant of St. Petersburg. It's actually a canteen of the Hermitage. And you get to eat your lunch sitting sometimes next to the restorers. And I think it's fascinating. It's thrilling. After a short lunch, we see the treasures of the storage. So hidden treasures tour Hermitage behind the closed doors covers all the buildings open to public today. So, my dear ladies and gentlemen, I think we are coming to the end, and I shall say how extremely difficult it was for me to choose the halls, extremely challenging for me. It was to choose the artifacts to talk about. There are thousands of them that I love, and I would love to share it with you. Now that lately you've been enjoying a world in safety of your homes, I hope that very soon we will be able to meet in person, and we'll be able, together with Viking team, share our love and passion about this outstanding museum with you in person. Hopefully, we'll see you soon here in St. Petersburg, Russia.
Born out of Catherine the Great's private art collection, the Hermitage is a living monument to Russian history and culture. This was the home of the Romanovs and now one of the world's greatest museums. You must not miss the glories of the Hermitage. I know of no better way to explore and learn about this grand museum than through the Viking program Hermitage Behind Closed Doors. With links to resources no one else has, such as director of the Hermitage Foundation and author Geraldine Norman, these privileged access tours were created to provide a unique insight into the world's greatest museum. The special Hermitage early opening is a real treat. The grand galleries uncrowded and inviting, the experience relaxed and immersive. Stroll leisurely amid priceless diplomatic gifts from Asia and the Middle East, all while regular tours and other visitors wait outside in line. Hermitage Behind Closed Doors also offers an exclusive visit to the museum's ultra-secured vaults. In these 35,000-metre off-site storage facilities, you're escorted through a remarkable unexhibited collection of artistic and historic artefacts, from Romanov family furniture to paintings by great masters to stunning imperial carriages, all protected by state-of-the-art security systems.
Come, explore the Hermitage with us in the best possible way. The Hermitage Behind Closed Doors with Viking. No one can share Russia with you like we can.